I'm done. There's literally nothing left for me to do in mixed martial arts. I truly felt that. Like, let's look at the landscape. Okay. All right. I come back and I'm still the champion. You have Adriano taking on Danny Kingyad. Okay. Adriano beats Danny Kingyad, then I'll fight him. You had Kyle Akhmatov, who was there in the division. He just popped when he fought Reese McLaren for some type of substance in his thing. So he got suspended. Nobody knows who Kyle Akhmatov is. So is that really big fight? Okay, let's do a super fight. Who am I going to fight? Super Lake? Yeah, I'll pass on that. I'm not getting my fucking leg kicked off and get fucking elbowed to oblivion. Okay, let me come back to the UFC. Okay, now I'm back in Dana White's office arguing about how much I should get paid and let's fight for pay-per-view points, blah, blah, blah. Why would I want those headaches? Why would I put my energy in? Why would I do that? Like, I'd rather sit here in my office in my beautiful home, my beautiful children, be able to go to their football games, be able to take Tyron to his jiu-jitsu tournaments and his jiu-jitsu, be at my daughter's gymnastics, and keep on building the Mighty Cast and looking for guests and start building my studio for the road. I mean, that sounds way more enjoyable than trying to like, oh, what the fuck? Done that for fucking 20 years.
He is the greatest flyweight of all time. He is a former UFC champion, a former ONE champion, and now retired and doing my job, actually. He's doing interviews and hosting podcasts and doing everything else. And I'm super excited to talk to him, though, of course. Always a pleasure to speak to Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. DJ, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Let me say this first and foremost. Like, you have your own podcast now, which you do incredible numbers with. Like, and I'm saying this sincerely. I know we've known each other for a lot of years, but like, you don't have to do this. So like, I appreciate it because you can just go on your own podcast and say whatever you want to say. I appreciate you coming and still doing interviews with guys like me because honestly, you don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to do the interviews with people who supported you throughout your whole entire career. And, I'm just so productive and my time is so valuable. And it's just, I apologize to anybody out there who's trying to get an interview with me. There's only so much time in a day, especially with 3 kids. I got two that do jiu-jitsu, one that's doing football, and another one that does gymnastics. And I also have my own stuff. So I barely have time to play fucking video games.
It's wild too, because I say this to, like, there are certain fighters that I've talked to and known over the years that I'm like, I always appreciate that I got to see a lot of their fights in person. I was going back to your record, remembering like all the fights of yours that I was actually at. Because I was like trying to bring it up. We were going to do the interview. I was like, how many DJ fights? Because like you and John Jones in particular and George St. Pierre, 3 guys that I've attended a lot of your biggest fights. And I'm like, looking back now, I'm like, because I don't go to a lot of shows these days. And I'm like, I'm just glad I was there for a lot of those fights. Because like, there's never going to be another Demetrious Johnson. And like, I'm glad, like, I remember being there in Sacramento fight week for you and Joseph Benavidez. Like, there's certain, so like, it's awesome. Like, now that you're retired, like, man, I'm so glad I took the opportunity to see those fights.
I appreciate that. Yeah, like you said, there might never be another Demetrious Johnson. And, obviously, I submitted a small piece of mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts is still growing. There might be somebody who comes out in 20 to 30 years that might have the same intelligence as I had, and who thinks outside the box when they fight and has the same athleticism. So we'll see. But right now, I don't see anybody anytime soon that can like replicate what I've done in mixed martial arts.
So I'm not gonna ask you to repeat yourself because you've talked about a lot of this stuff since retiring. But one thing I did want to bring up to you, because I heard you say this, is that you basically knew a year ago you were going to retire. But what I loved about that, because it's funny, I interviewed Adriano Moraes a few days ago, and I said, what do you think about DJ retiring? And he said, I think he's coming back. And I was like, oh. and I said, but what you said, and I thought this was so smart of you, is you said, like, you knew a year ago, but you wanted to give yourself that year. So you didn't do I love Donald Cerrone, but like Donald Cerrone, just I'm coming back. Like, no, we always joke about MMA retirements. You took that year to make sure there was no itch, right? Like, that was the whole point.
Yeah, 1000%. That was the whole point. And I think, obviously everybody has so many different things going on in their life. I know Donald Cerrone, I've been trying to get him on the Mighty Cast for a while now. We've been going back and forth. And I know, he's done movies. He's got his ranch. He's got his children. He does scuba diving. He does so much things. in his life that keep him busy. And so maybe, he wants to come back and get that 50, like have 50 fights in the UFC. For me, I just don't like mixed martial arts competing. I get enjoyment out of doing it in jujitsu and going like, IBJJF and doing that stuff. So for me, I just don't see a point to coming back. Like, if I were to come back to fighting, what would I do? At one point in time, there was an itch, or I wanted to box and do a boxing match. But as I am building a successful brand in the YouTube space and the Mighty Cast, I rather put my energy in something that's going to be I can do when I'm 45, 50, 55, 60, and travel the world and talk to so many different athletes, and not just athletes, but just amazing people. I'd rather focus on that than coming back and fighting for what? Like, when I talked to GSP, he was somebody who inspired me to retire and still inspires me to this day, where he was like, if you're coming back to fight and make money, there's millions of ways to make money. And I'm realizing that now. And I've always been smart with my finances. And yeah, there's just no point to come back and fight. Like, don't get me wrong, I still train. Like, I'm going to go hit pads tomorrow because I can, because I'm healthy enough. I can still, move and fight if I wanted to. But I think the best part about this is that I can choose whether to fight or not, where a lot of fighters are like, man, I got to fight. Or what else am I going to do with my life? Like, there's so much more I can do in my life besides fighting.
Yeah. It's also funny because we always say like the sad reality of the sport is like a lot of times, what's the old phrase go, the sport's going to retire you, not you retire from the sport.
Yep.
We have like 5 or 6 instances where guys have walked away on top. George St. Pierre is a great example of that. Obviously Khabib did at his point. Like, obviously you were just defending your title and you were still the champion, but that time runs out for everybody, right? Like, do we want you to run yourself into the ground where you're like 43 and you've lost 3 in a row and now we're telling you to retire? Like, I assume you never wanted to get to that point.
No, absolutely not. That's why my black ass is like, I'm done. There's literally nothing left for me to do in mixed martial arts. I truly felt that. Like, let's look at the landscape. Okay. All right. I come back and I'm still the champion. You have Adriano taking on Danny Kingyad. Okay. Adriano beats Danny Kingyad, then I'll fight him. You had Kairat Akhmatov, who was there in the division. He just popped when he fought Reese McLaren for some type of substance in his thing. So he got suspended. Nobody knows who Kairat Akhmatov is. So is that really big fight? Okay, let's do a super fight. Who am I going to fight? Super Lake? Yeah, I'll pass on that. I'm not getting my fucking leg kicked off and get fucking elbowed to oblivion. So, okay, let me come back to the UFC. Okay, now I'm back in Dana White's office arguing about how much I should get paid and let's fight for pay-per-view points, blah, blah, blah. Why would I want those headaches? Why would I put my energy in? Why would I do that? Like, I'd rather sit here in my office, in my beautiful home, my beautiful children, be able to go to their football games, be able to take Tyron to his jiu-jitsu tournaments and his jiu-jitsu, be at my daughter's gymnastics, and keep on building the Mighty Cast and looking for guests and start building my studio for the road. I mean, that sounds way more enjoyable than trying to like, oh, what the fuck? Done that for fucking 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I remember going back years ago and when you became flyweight champion, I can't remember at what point we've had these conversations, but I remember you like at one point you're like, I wanted to break Anderson Silva's record. Like, that was a big deal to you. You did that. You have a title defense record that I personally believe will never be touched because no one wants to defend their title anymore. They all want to become 9 division champions or whatever. And just getting to that number, it's a ridiculous number. I don't know that we'll ever see that. And then obviously you ever won championship, won the Grand Prix, won the title, did some big things over there. Like, you've done everything. Like, what do people want? Like, what else do you have to do?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's been an amazing journey. And I think accomplishing all those things in mixed martial arts is there's nothing left I could do. I mean, don't get me wrong. Can I go and try to be double champ? Yeah, but it's been done before. And I think what me and Anderson Silva have done with that many consecutive title defenses in a row, you're right. It's going to be a touch because you look at the landscape of mixed martial arts. So you have Ilia Topuria, who's 27 years old. And I don't know where you plan on dropping this interview, but he's taking on Max Holloway. So, Max has been there. You look at Alex Tejeda, he's like 37 years old. you look at all the champions, they're in their 30s. Alex Pantoja, he's 34. The next guy he's fighting, he's coming over from Ryzen. And you know, Kai Asakura is an amazing athlete. Great wins, beat Kyojo Horiguchi. So I just feel when I got the belt, I was 2012. So from 2012 all the way to 2018, you know, that's 6 years of just dominance. And you're not going to see that nowadays because, like you said, everyone wants to go up and fight for, you know, you have Alex Volkanovski going up and fighting, you know, Islam Makhachev. But, you know, rightfully so, there's nobody left in the 145-pound division for him to fight until Ilia Topuria came along. So, yeah, I think the 11 consecutive title defenses will never be touched. You know, John Jones, he's been in and out of, you know, lost his title, got it back. Now he's at heavyweight. Now he just won it. Now he's going to defend against Stipe, who hasn't fought in, you know, 5 years. So, yeah, I think what I've been able to accomplish as a champion is it's not going to be able to be replicated for a very, very long time.
It's funny because, and I don't fault the guy, but I think it's the Conor McGregorization, whatever you want to call it, because he did the two-division thing. But I said this yesterday, and going back to Ilya, like, I don't fault anyone for wanting to have great goals in the sport. There's nothing wrong with that. But I get sad. I'm like, why does no one want to just defend their title? Like, do you realize how tough that is? Like, there's a reason why the longest title defense streak in heavyweight is 3. Like, that's the longest. There's 3 defenses. And, like, even at lightweight, it was 3 for the longest. Like, 3. So, like, that's so hard. And I understand everyone wants to, I want to be champ, and double champ. I have zero doubt, had the UFC actually paid you $1 million, you would have gladly gone up and fought TJ Dillashaw, and I think you have a great chance to become a double champ. But that title defense streak, like, to me, like, that to me is just as, if not more impressive than becoming double champ, because nobody can do that anymore.
Exactly. It's easy to win belts, right? Like, you know, let's say you like say GSP. I mean, it's easy to win belts, but it's also harder to be consistent every single time you step inside the cage, the octagon, the ring, whatever it may be. And I found, you know, enjoyment in setting a goal. Like, can I beat Anderson Silva's record? Records are set in order to strive to achieve or break. And that was something I always had my eye on. And same thing with Matt Hume. He was like, no, we need to break that because that's going to be cemented forever in the legacy of the UFC. Granted, they don't talk about it. They say, how many championships to people, how many world championships? It's like, okay, well, if you want to do that, I've had 15 and different organizations. Let's talk about Vanderlei Silva. How many championships defenses he had in Pride? So, but yeah, I also think it's more of a gain of money, right? Like, I think it's all about like, oh, if I become a double champ, how much more money can I make? The bigger fights sell more. So there's a lot more things that go into stipulation for people who want to achieve that double champ status. But I still think, you know, defending your belt over and over, making 125 over and over, fighting the next guy who might not bring you the pay-per-view points, who might not be the biggest star. Maybe we're in an age now in 2024 where it's about trying to be double champ. But we'll see. You know, we'll see what you know, the champions now want to do, because you have a lot of great champions. DDP, Dricus du Plessis, you know, Alex Piejeda, he's older. Who else we have? We have Ilia Topuria if he gets past Max. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. To that point, you know, DJ, when you left the UFC and went to one championship, I think the argument, and I understand that last fight was to Cejudo, but I think like you were a victim of your own success in a certain way because you dominated that division so long. And I know the conversation has come up over and over again about, like, you know, Dana saying like whatever, you know, you weren't selling pay-per-views or whatever. I think the reality is you were just so much better than your competition. They couldn't find anyone to challenge you. And obviously you got to that Henry Cejudo fight. I'm not going to bring up whether that was actually a loss or not. But are you, like, ultimately the way things played out with you leaving and going to one championship and kind of making your career over there and being able to, even though, like you said, like doing the Rod Tank fight, like you could have never done that in the UFC. Like you would never had that opportunity. Even some of the grappling things, like who knows, like would they have allowed you to do the grappling things? Do you feel like this played out perfectly for you? Like I know a lot of UFC fans like, man, we miss DJ. We wish we got to see him continue to dominate and do the things he did over there. But I know from talking to you once you joined one, like you were happy there. You did good things over there.
1000%. One championship is probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. And the reason why I say that is on multiple fronts, you know, obviously the antitrust lawsuit just, you know, went to preliminary. And then I remember somebody says, you know, you take 23% of whatever you made in the company, and that's what it would be. So in that time frame from 2011 all the way to 2017, I had 17 fights. I think 12 of them were world championship fights, and then 5 of them weren't. And so I did all the math, I did all that stuff, and I was like, what the fuck? That's all I made? Like I was in bed last night just doing the math. I was like, God damn, I'm fucking gutted. And I was just gutted. Like for being one of the best fighters in the world, at one point in time, pound for pound best fighter in the world. I was like, fuck, man. I was like, God damn, if I would have done like NBA, fucking baseball, like it would have been fucking pennies on the dollar what I made in UFC. And so I'm truly grateful that I had the opportunity to go to one championship because I felt it was a time where one championship were looking for a great American talent. You know, me, Eddie Alvarez, Sage Northcutt, and it was the perfect opportunity. A company that valued my morals and my skill set, that were really focused on getting rid of the flyweights, and it was the best career decision I ever made. And I love One Championship for it. And I'm still involved with One Championship, trying to help them build their brand, their fighters. And yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that if I had a crystal ball and I could look at I sit there and like foresee the future. And if it was like, okay, if I were to be Henry, my black athlete would be stuck in the UFC, still fighting tooth and nail for more money. Or if I would have looked in there like, I should lose, and you're gonna go over to One Championship, make more money, we're gonna lose this fucking fight, Matt. We're gonna, it's okay. Don't worry about it, right? But everything worked out for the way it is. I believe God has a plan, and I believe that was, the way it played out was the way it should have played out, and I'm truly grateful for that. And yeah, like I love one, and I think to have the opportunity to fight one of the best guys in the world in Muay Thai, to have that mixed rules fight, which it only built my brand even more. If I wanted to grapple in One Championship, I could do that shit. I still could do that if I really wanted to. So I think One Championship is, amazing. It gives athletes the opportunity to do more than you have. Cabertolo, phenomenal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. Now he's about to do mixed martial arts. Yeah.
I'm curious because I know you've addressed the trade and you talked about like, who won the trade and things like that. Can I ask, I'm curious because that was such an unprecedented move. And I think if there's one knock on our sport, and I understand the UFC, they're the biggest. They don't have to work with anybody. Like they don't, like they really don't. But do you think we'll ever see a world where promotions will, at least, like I was off air before we started, we were talking about Francis just getting this big win in PFL, and I'm happy for Francis. We all love Francis. Absolutely. But I said the reality is he has no one to fight now. Like he just doesn't have anyone to fight. And I said, Anatoly Malikin is the one that I'd love to see. Like I think he is a bad dude. And I was like, but could we actually get PFL and one to work? Like, I know the trade was something different, but like, it kind of saddens me. They're like, okay, UFC is UFC, but couldn't we at least get like Malikin and Ngannou to fight? Like, couldn't we get that to happen?
That would be a banger fight, man. Banger fight. I think right now, Francis Ngannou is probably the best heavyweight in the world. I truly believe that. Like after seeing what he did to his last opponent, he beat Stipe, knocked him out 4 years ago. Yes, he hasn't fought John Jones, but John Jones just got to the heavyweight party. Okay, let's not pretend like he's been there his whole entire career, right? Like me and my producer, we had a conversation. It's like if John Jones goes out there and beat Steven Miocic, will we call him one of the greatest heavyweights? And I said, no, we wouldn't, right? That's like somebody coming from the middleweight division and going to the light heavyweight and winning the belt and getting 3 fights and calling him the greatest light heavyweight. I'm like, no, John Jones is the greatest light heavyweight that we've ever seen. So will we ever get the opportunity to see, Anatoly fight Francis Ngannou? Probably not. I think Francis is in a space where he can dictate what he wants to do, which I think every athlete should strive for that. Like if Francis wants to go box next, he can go box. If Francis wants to go do mixed martial arts, he can go do mixed martial arts. A lot of athletes, we don't have that grace. We have a contract that's in place with PFL, One Championship, UFC, whatever it may be. And I think now this is the point in time where content is king, and having all the athletes locked up under your umbrella is ideal, right? Like why would PFL loan Francis to One Championship in order so they can make money off of Francis Ngannou? Vice versa. Why would we loan out Anatoly, 3 divisional champion, undefeated, 100% finishing rate? Why would we lend out that unicorn to PFL? Right? Could PFL and One Championship come to an agreement and say, hey, we're going to have our champions fight, Yes. But then let's say Anatoly beats the bricks off Francis. Everyone's like, okay, well, that devalues PFL's heavyweight division, or vice versa. Let's say Francis beats the bricks off of Anatoly. It devalues one championship. So it's, when you look at it as a business standpoint, as I'm looking right now, it doesn't make sense. But as a fan perspective, just let me know where I can buy the pay-per-view.
Let me ask DJ, you mentioned the we just saw yesterday that the antitrust lawsuit came to a close, or it's coming to a close, and you mentioned you did the math in your head. I wanted to ask you, because I remember when you signed with One, and you didn't give me numbers, but you seemed like you were very, very happy with what you're being paid as a One championship fighter. When you look back and you did the math on that, you're like, Jesus Christ, so what was I getting paid? Do you hold any ill will towards the UFC for that, like looking back on it now, or do you look at it and say, listen, that was the time and maybe I should have known better? Like, I don't know. You tell me, like, because once you got to One, like you were obviously, like, I feel like you were being paid better. I have to assume you're being paid better.
Yeah, 1000%. I think the first thing that came to my mind, and I'm just going to stop at that, is like, if I was the champion and I did it 17 fights in that time frame, I did all the math without the Reebok sponsorship, or without, the Dodger Dart and all the other sponsorships, because I don't really know those numbers, right? I felt very comfortable with the numbers I put there. If I made this much and I feel a certain way, I'm curious what the next guy felt, like Joseph, Ray Borg, John Dodson, John Moraga. The list just goes on, right? That was the first thing. And me and my producer talked about it this morning. I was like, if I feel this way and I'm the champion and I was winning all my fights, I don't think anybody else in the flyweight division was making more money than me. So if I feel this way, imagine how those guys feel. Like I said, One championship was the best thing that ever happened to me in my career. And I'll stand by that. I'll take that to the graves.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, you seemed happy over there, right? Like, you seemed like the happiest guy in the world. And we're in a world now where, like, I mean, we do have the competition out there, but, like, getting fair value, what you're worth. You know your worth, right? Like, you found out your worth.
Yep.
And it seems like you were paid your worth.
Yeah, and it was like, I remember I had a conversation with Chatri. It was after I beat Adriano when I beat him the second time. And he called me, he goes, dude, like, that fucking fight, that flying knee, like, the numbers are off the chart. Amazon Prime, they're happy. Like, you came over here and you delivered. And I've always believed in my brand. I've always believed in my fight skill, my fighting, my intelligence, my skills that I bring to the table. Like, you can never say that. Like, you can say, wow, Conor McGregor's a great fighter, but he does lack deficiencies. He's unreliable now, right? The old Conor, when he was show up and goes, "This is the fucking method, what's going on?" Absolutely, like, he was gonna be there. But I've never shown up and not delivered. I've always been a reliable athlete, but I've always shown up, made weight. So when I got the opportunity to go to One and prove that, I think when they sat back, I'm like, holy shit, like, this kid is a working horse. Like, he's not here just to play. He's here to fucking work and actually fight. So it felt good when, Amazon Prime was like, holy shit, those numbers, like, good job, guys. You made a great sound decision to get into Demetrious Johnson, because he's going to show up every time and deliver.
And I know that, like, you can't listen, you can promote, you can put guys on, pay-per-views, you can put guys on Fox, things like that. But you just wonder, like, I always had that question, like, why didn't the UFC get more behind you in that way? And again, you can only do so much. I understand that, but you became, like, you were the face of One championship. And, like, when you fought, it was always must-see television for the fans, like, the hardcore fans. But I'm saying, like, they made it must-see television. Demetrious Johnson, the greatest of all time, to go, blah, blah, blah. I just wonder, like, I don't know, maybe it just bugs me, like, looking back on, like, man, I just wish they had put more into that, because like I said, I take pride in the fact that I got to see, like, 5 or 6 Demetrious Johnson title defenses. Like, I take pride in the fact that, man, I was there to witness the knockout over Joseph Benavidez and watch the crowd just hush silence when you knocked him out in front of the Sacramento. Like, that's special. But I was like, man, why didn't they put more, like, your fights with John Dodson? Those are freaking good fights. Like,
they're bangers. Yeah, the first time when me and John Dodson fought UFC Fox 6 in Chicago in 2013, that was a banger. I think that did like 5.5 million views when me and him were fighting at that time. Like, people tuned in just to see that fight. And at the end of the day, the UFC, any organization, it is a business. It is an absolute business. So when you're looking at, like, okay, we're going to have this guy on and he's costing this much money. He's not bringing this much pay-per-view points. Okay, we're not going to invest in that building or investing in promoting that guy. And don't get me wrong, I was always a team player when it came to like, I don't forget, I flew out to Las Vegas. It was for UFC 197. We have the sick promotion, even UFC 186 when I was about to fight Kujo Horiguchi. But I remember UFC 197, they have this sick promotion we're doing like for the trailer for the fight. And it was, we did it. We're probably in that studio for what, 4 or 5 hours. I was sick, but I was looking shredded because I was, thrown up, and they never used it. Why didn't they use it? Because John Jones versus DC got injured and he ended up fighting OSP. They didn't use any of that. I'm like, why am I spending all this time promoting? I mean, I am spending not promoted, but doing television shoots or trailer shoots, and we're not going to use it just because one person falls off the card. Like, you've already shot it. Me and Harry are still fighting, so just use it. And it never did. But at the end of the day, when I lay my head in the pillow at night, I sleep good. That was the UFC's choice not to get behind me and promote me, or did not know how to promote me. And let's be honest, the American fans, they don't really care about the smaller weights. They just don't, which is fine. I don't really care to watch, certain not athletes, but certain sports. Like, I don't care to watch baseball, but there's a whole fan base that enjoy watching baseball. It's the same thing mixed martial arts. There's a whole fan base that enjoy 155 and below, even 125 more than the heavyweights. There's a fan base that don't like watching 125. No problem. But I'm always going to show up and deliver and whoop ass and chew bubble gum.
I remember talking to Rich Franklin years ago, because Rich, I talked to Rich before this last one card, and I kind of forgot how long he's been at one championship. I remember we had Rich on one of my podcasts because we're both in Ohio. And at one point he was like, I don't know if they'll get me into the UFC Hall of Fame, because he's like a big part of he's like an executive of one championship. Now they did, to their credit, they gave him it. I think we all know, DJ, you are a shoe-in for the UFC. I mean, Dana said it. He's like, yeah, he's going to Can I, like, A, do you think it will happen? And B, will you accept it? Like, will you actually go there and accept if they put you in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's not get it twisted. I am grateful for my time in the UFC because that gave me the platform to be able to build my brand. So when I went over to Asia, I already had a fan base. I wasn't a new kid coming into there. I was on the biggest platform in North America. I became a world champion, pound for pound best fighter in the world, 11 consecutive title defenses. So I made my career in the UFC. And there hasn't been anybody else to be able to do what I've been able to do inside the UFC. So I think it's only right. But if they see it fit that I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, then absolutely I'll accept it. Like I said, there's no ill will. It does me no good to go to bed at night pissed off at Dana White. There's no energy. That's a waste of energy. There's no ill will that I don't want the UFC to succeed, because it does nothing for me. Like, if they succeed, awesome. If they fail, okay, but it is what it is. So my time in the UFC was amazing, and yeah, I'll absolutely accept that award.
And I mean, Dana never said a bad word about you all those years. He never said a bad word about you, DJ.
I think you might want to go check MMA Guru. I did a video on that. You can check it on the YouTube channel. It's Mighty Gaming. Go look at that video. And once again, we're all human, right? Dana White's got to be in front of the camera for so long. Who is he not said, bad things about? I don't want to say bad things, but negative things about, right? So, dude, like, yeah, I'm not gonna go down that path again.
I don't want you. I'm not trying to get you to step on a landmine, but I'm curious, because like I've known Dana for many years. I know how Dana is. Like, I get it. I get how he is. What was the biggest difference working for a guy like Chatri, though? Like, working because Chatri, I've talked to Chatri. Like, Chatri he's not above like saying his opinion about somebody if they don't have a good fight or if they have a falling out. What was the biggest difference working for a guy like Chatri versus working for a guy like Dana?
I mean, having a conversation, let's start there. Obviously, me and Dana, we didn't really do much business together, like talk back and forth and like try to figure out what's next or what we should do. And that was the thing. And it's just like Dana White's Anthony Pettis and Dana White, they have an amazing relationship, right? My relationship with Chatri has always been amazing. Other fighters can say differently. Like, they never had a good conversation or relationship with Chatri. But each time each Chacho had ever talked, it's always been straightforward. It's always been transparent. And even when it came down to fighting Rate, right? It was like, hey, what do you think? And I'm like, yeah, I think it's good. I don't care to be a world champion in Muay Thai, but we can do something else. And he goes, okay, well, we'll call you back. And they came back with the Super Rules fight. So I think that was, a good stepping stone for us to build our relationship and that business relationship between athlete and promoter and the CEO of the company. And then even when it was time for me when I decided to retire, uh, I was honest, transparent with him, and he was honest, transparent with me. And he goes, man, he said, man, I was really hoping you were going to come back and fight. Like, I was hanging on just because I know you're still young, you can still fight. I know you've always taken care of your body. I was really hoping to see you fight. But if your wish is to never fight again, then I am not in a position to force you to fight. And I would still love to have you run a company, help us build the brand and build the fighters and in the way you see fit. Right. And I said, absolutely, I would love to. And that's what we're working through right now is how can I help the company and build the athletes. And what I want to start doing is bringing more eyeballs to One Championship and getting more interviews with their athletes, right? Like finding the right athlete, telling their story and being able to shape the company in a certain way, how it's different from the UFC, right? Like we have, I feel comfortable saying this, we have the best strikers on the planet because we have kickboxing and Muay Thai. Like if you put Super League against MMA guy in a Muay Thai fight, Super League's going to win 1000%. Now, if I put Super League in a mixed martial arts fight, he's going to have a lot of trouble because he can't grapple. So, and just letting people know, like, there's a big pond of talent out there that you can watch. And a lot of people in America don't realize that. A lot of people don't even realize. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. They didn't even know I went off to One Championship and had six banger fight over there. And he goes, I thought you retired after you lost to him. I was like, nah, dog. I was like, I've been over in Asia whooping ass. And he goes, oh, where can I watch? You can watch it on Amazon Prime or you can watch it on YouTube. Like that. Like, so yeah.
I made the argument recently. I said, I think the reason why I personally put like in the US, I said, I think BKFC has become the number 2 promotion to the UFC. And I know PFL hates me saying that, but I said, because they're different. They're different. And I think, and that's what I do a podcast with Matt Brown. I know you know Matt from his time in Washington. He said, he's like, the reason he likes One is because it's not just like the UFC. He can watch Muay Thai and grappling and kickboxing. Because every other MMA organization, like it or not, you can do tournaments, you can do, $1 million champion, you can do all that. At the end of the day, it still looks like a different version of the UFC. And I think that's where One, and even I know BKFC is totally different, but it's not just another UFC.
Yeah, 1000%. And that's what I think separates One Championship from the rest of the competition. It's not a mixed martial arts organization. It is the organization that celebrates all forms of not mixed martial arts, all forms of martial arts. You have kickboxing, you have Muay Thai, you have mixed martial arts, you have submission grappling. We even have boxing. We haven't gone back to boxing yet, but I think once we're in this period now where we're trying to figure out what is the best option for the fan base. There are people out there who just love Muay Thai. There's a huge, massive market just for Muay Thai that a lot of American fans would love to see because once you go to the ground, people are like, oh, stand them up. I don't want to see the grappling, or they're not educated enough to understand the grappling. And I think, this is part of like, not a role that I'm willing to take on, but now as I sit on the other side of this seat is how do we get people invested in the athlete story, right? Jonathan Haggerty, amazing athlete, but nobody really truly knows his story. No, I don't. If I was to sit here today and ask you, like, man, I don't know what John Haggerty's story is. I don't know what his goals are, what he wants to do, what does he hope to do with all the money he makes from fighting. Same thing, Rodtang, right? Like, I don't like. Does Rodtang want to just fight forever, or does Rodtang want to, open up a school where it's like, hey, you know what? Like, the lifestyle of a Muay Thai athlete in Thailand is, we come from, poor, and then we hopefully become rich. How about I'll focus on something like, hey, we can still live that tradition, but let's try to not force or be not pigeonholed, but the word I'm trying to get to is that I want to be different for my children. And so I'm trying to lay the front that you don't have to do a rat race. You don't have to go to 9 to 5. You don't have to go to college. You figure out your passion and you work your 9 to 5 jobs to be able to make enough money so you can grind in your passion, and hopefully your passion and turn into the full-time monetization to take care of your life. It's like Stan Fairtex. It's like Stan. Let's get together and do a makeup line. Let's start let's do a beauty line. That way you're gonna make more money in the beauty line than you are in Muay Thai, right? So that's like my thought process. Like, how can we get involved with the athlete's story instead of focus on like, yes, you're a bad motherfucker. We know that. But there has to be more to the onion when we peel it away. A lot of fans might not like that. It might not really cater to the market, but that's something that intrigues me. So this is me like thinking it and thinking out loud, like how I can help one championship.
That was you at the video games, the Xbox sponsorship back in the day. Like, you were the guy that kind of started that in a way. Like, you were the guy who kind of brought that in. Two real quick things before I let you go, DJ. One thing is that, listen, you did a lot of things in your career. Again, like I said, I think the 11 title defenses that will never be touched. Maybe one day, 50 years from now, when people start trying to be multi-time defending champions again, I don't know it'll ever happen. But we always talk about like Ronda Rousey, and like, if it wasn't for Ronda Rousey, we may have not got women in the UFC. Now, maybe revisionist history, we could say, well, eventually it would have happened. I don't know, but I know she was a catalyst for that. Now, you can sit here and say, you're right. I understand. Some people are not big fans of the little fighters, smaller fighters. I get it.
Yeah.
But I feel like if it wasn't for you, we may not have had a flyweight division, because when you and Joseph were there, like, obviously bantamweight was great, but you were an undersized bantamweight. You were a natural flyweight. That was your more natural weight class. Do you take pride, or at least, I know you're not going to sit and pat yourself in the back too hard, but like, we may not have had that great trilogy, whatever, with Brandon Moreno and Devison Figueiredo if there wasn't a Demetrious Johnson to champion a flyweight division. We would not have had the longest reigning champion in UFC history, an 11-time defending champion, had there not been a flyweight division. I know one championship had divisions, but like, I think what the attention you brought to that division has blown it up. Like, we know Danny Kingaard is a name. We know Adriano Moraes is a name now because he fought Demetrious Johnson. Do you take pride in that in terms of like the flyweight division?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like Joseph Benavidez said, there's going to be one George Washington, like the very first president. And I said, well, there's going to be only one Barack Obama, the first Black president. So with that being said, yeah, I take absolute pride in that, because I felt with me, Joseph, Ian McCall, and Hiroshi Tani, I believe I said his name right, we kind of set the front for the flyweight division. And, I have to give credit to the UFC, because they actually opened that division up in North America, because that division was, booming in Japan, Shuto and all that stuff. But it would never made it big here unless the UFC opened it up, right? And I agree with you. People now know who Adriano is in the States because he blew my face out in the first time we fought. And I fought Danny. So yeah, I'm absolutely happy that happened, whether I was on the losing end of the fight or the winning end of the fight.
Last question, and I know this is an ego question, but I am curious, because constantly, like, we like to label people in the sport, and we're all guilty of it. We love to talk about these kind of conversations, like greatest of all time, right? Like greatest of all time. I've always, the way I described you, and you can go back and listen to a million of my podcasts when I say this, I consider you the most skilled mixed martial artist I've ever seen, regardless of weight class. Like, you are the most skilled fighter I've ever witnessed fight, because you had everything. You were striking, you were grappling, you were wrestling, you were submissions. I call you the most skilled martial artist of all time. I'm curious, when people compliment you and they say greatest of all time, greatest flyweight of all time, whatever, what compliment do you appreciate the most? Or do you say, man, that's the, like, when I'm done and you're done fighting, that's what I'm proudest of?
Skilled, because I think me and Matt really took a lot of dedication and discipline to, after the fights, coming back to the lab and focus on other parts of the game of mixed martial arts, and still staying consistent in fighting, because it's very rare you see a champion become somebody getting the belt, being a world champion, and then going out there and defending their belt time and time again, and showing new skills as they're growing as a champion, because you truly don't get better when you're consistently fighting unless you really take the time to get better. And even to this day, I'm still in the gym. I just spent 4 days in 3 days in Canada working on new things in the jiu-jitsu realm and the gi. So I'm still striving to learn. And I think you can see it in my fights. Like, who does that in 11 consecutive title defense, do a flying armbar from the back? It's like, I didn't have to do that. Right? Like, I'm still, you see when I fight Adriano, I'm moving and boom and flying knees. Like, I was still getting better. Where you look at, like, a guy like John Jones, he hasn't done anything. He hasn't like developed like a skill set where it's like, okay, well, I'm good in the clinch. How can I use the clinch, the elbow, and throw a high kick and knock somebody out? Right? Like, that's the stuff that me and Matt Hume were doing inside the lab, and just trying to be the most skilled athlete. And I'm grateful for him for pushing me to do that, because he would spar me. He goes, yes, can we win? Yeah, we can. But is it going to be exciting? Like, you have to put yourself in the fire. So I truly believe, like, when I talk to people and I look at athletes like Aljo, I haven't been able to train with so many other fighters, but Aljo he's very, very good. And I think he's striving to get to that point. I think from the time I saw him when he was very little, I just think he's missing that head puppeteer master where he can sit back. Like, Matt would sit back and watch me every sparring session, every grappling session. And he'd be like, okay, this is looking good. Let's do this. And me and Matt were like yin yang. We're together every single day. Where I don't know if Aljo has that, or a lot of people have that. Ilya Taporia, he has his team. Max has his team. Now is his team, Izzy has his team too. But is that team truly forcing them? Like, hey, you're going to grapple for, like, Matt will be like, hey, you're just doing this. You're not fucking doing Muay Thai. You're not kickboxing. You're doing this. And when I would spar, he'd be like, okay, how many times can you submit that person in one round? He would force that on me. And now I'm trying to force that same mindset on my son. I'm like, okay, in this jiu-jitsu match, I want you to attack the whole entire time. I want you to see if you can submit him 5 times. Finish that person 5 times. And I'm trying to slowly repeat that in his jiu-jitsu, not in mixed martial arts for him, because I don't want him to fight.
Yeah, and I know you said, listen, now you're doing it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's funny, I talked to Alex Davis a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about that, and he's like, he was just raving about you, like, watching you do jiu-jitsu. Because I remember talking to this going back, like, probably about a year ago, when I said, do you want to do grappling super matches? You're like, no, I just want to grapple. Like, I'm not into, like, the promotion. I don't want to do, like, let's just go grapple. Like, and Alex was just, like, raving about seeing you at that tournament. Like, man, watching him, Demetrious, is so fun to watch. And, like, so now you have a new challenge, right? You're going to continue to challenge yourself in jiu-jitsu. That's going to be your newest challenge.
Yeah, and it's fun, right? Like, it's something fun. Like, I'm grateful and I'm blessed that I'm in a position where I am like, oh, I think I'm going to do pants this next year. Oh, I think I'm going to do, IBJJF World Masters. Like, I'm in a position where I get to dictate where I want to go and compete. It just doesn't seem fun to me right now in the situation that I'm in, not a situation, the situation I put myself in where, oh man, I get ready to this jiu-jitsu match. I got to train super hard. Hey, he's going to do this. He's going to do that. I rather just show up like, hey, let's run it. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can enjoy the journey of jiu-jitsu, because I've had the 18 to 20 years of stressing about, I gotta get ready for this fight. I gotta defend the belt. If I go out and I lose in my last tournament, I had a good time. I had fun. Went home after the tournament, jumped in the pool with my daughter. It was the best time ever. And I was able to make content, and yeah, I'm happy where I'm at right now in my jiu-jitsu journey.
Absolutely. Well, DJ, I mean this sincerely, man. It's been a pleasure to cover your career. I know you're not going anywhere. You're going to continue to create content, and you're still going to be around, obviously doing the Mighty Cast and everything. But from a fighting standpoint, man, I really do take it as an honor that I was there from the beginning, and I got to go to so many of your fights and see so many of your biggest moments. So it's been an honor to cover your career, and I can't wait to see what you do next. You're already doing everything next, but what else you might have down the line. But man, enjoy it. When I say enjoy retirement from fighting. You're not getting punched in the head anymore. You're still not retired, but retired from fighting. So again, in all seriousness, man, thank you for allowing me have access to you, and it's been an honor to cover your entire fight career.
Absolutely. Thank you. Like you said, I'm done fighting, but I'm still grinding into other rounds. I got a big project coming out in 2025. So I'm just in the kitchen cooking. That's all I'm trying to do.